What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as part of that team, last year in 2022 and the year before in 2021, reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And we're broadcasting live on January 8th, and I am fired up. This is going to be another epic conversation because I'm the home of Epic Conversations, and this is the place of epic conversations. You're watching Black Canada Talking. We do this every Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm saying that specifically Pacific because we have someone in the Pacific time zone today. So we're really doing a good geographical conversation today. And last week, I had the pleasure of hosting with Ryan Knight and Cesar, Ndema-Moussa, Black Canada Talking 2022, ... Black Canada Talking 2023, ? So we're going to have part 2 of that today. Cesar is back with us, but we have 3 new, beautiful, wonderful Black women voices and faces and souls to share with us today. So first things first, going to bring up our first friend. She's been on a few times before. Hello, Rosmeary Sadlier. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm blessed, highly favored, magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem, and Blackalicious.
All right, that's the new edition for 2023.
Yes. And people are telling me when I don't add the Blackalicious, they look at me very angry. So welcome to this digital stage again. Can you just share a little background about yourself?
Sure. People might know me as being a past president of the Ontario Black History Society, an organization that I headed for over 22 years. And in the process, I was able to initiate the formal commemorations of February as Black History Month at every level of government, building on what had already been done by Dr. Daniel G. Hill and the founders of the organization, but it needed to be tweaked a bit. And I was also able to, it didn't happen until March of 2021, see the final phase in the saga to have August 1st commemorated as Emancipation Day. And this is among many other commemorations. I'm also an author. I have 7 books out, and I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant.
Wonderful. Always a pleasure to have you. Always a pleasure. Next up, as I said, the reason why I said Pacific, we have a friend from the Pacific time zone today. Jackee, how are you today? Got to take yourself off mute.
Apologies.
That works. Hi.
Can you hear me now? Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Happy to be here with everyone. Rosmeary, really good to meet you. I'm Jackee Kasandy, the founder of the BBC Society, and I'm also an entrepreneur, 8 years old, in the world of entrepreneurship right here in Vancouver.
Wonderful. And tell us just a little bit about your society, because some people may not know about it. When we had a conversation, you said one of the things you got to work on in 2023 is getting that knowledge about your organization out there.
This is true. So BBC Society exists to advocate for Black businesses here in Canada. And so even though we offer supports, helping you get funding, we're trying to get people to get certified and get into corporate supplying and all that. What we do as an organization is try to be at the table when decisions are being made and criteria is being built for programs for small businesses, so that we can get lots more programs where Black entrepreneurs can actually qualify. Because one of the biggest issues we have, even existing programs right now, is that majority of Black entrepreneurs don't qualify for them. So both in the city, federal, provincial governments, in corporations, especially with banks and all of that, we're doing a lot of work to advocate for Black entrepreneurs.
I like that better. That's a better introduction. That's a solid introduction. Great to have you as always. Next up, L.A. Wade's in the house. What's going on, L.A. Wade?
I am blessed, highly favored, and a magnet for miracles, and a solution to someone's problems, and Blackalicious.
All right.
And I'm honored to be here with a mentor and an icon and a budding new venture that I knew nothing about. So thank you for your second introduction, because that was fantastic. That alone will have people going to Google just to figure out how to work with you. I know I will. It's great to be here in the new year. I'm grateful. There's been a lot of deaths. Do you notice that people die a lot near the end of the year? This is when people tend to pass away. And I find it interesting, though, because someone gave me the perspective that during the holidays, we have more time to be together. So when we're able to be together, then at least the person was gracious enough to make it so that we're already all together. And so they're just helping with the transition. But I digress. My name is Ellie Wade, and I am an author of a cute little book called The Adventures of a Recovering Sex Addict, Volume 1, Married Men and F-Boys. And what it is, it's about Callie Church, who's an Afro-Canadian Caribbean woman who has awoken from, well, thank you so much, she's naked on the cover because she's naked in her writing. Let me just put that out there. She's an Afro-Caribbean Canadian woman who is trying to navigate life after divorce, after the realization of her childhood sexual abuse, the death of her father, all of these different things, and how that played out in the relationship she found herself in. And it became more misadventures more than anything. And why we call it sex addict is because it's more of an indictment on our society, in the sense that we lead with sex as a way of building relationship. And so there's a critique to be had here. And Callie Church is starting with that critique so that she can explain to others how she holds herself accountable through the misadventures of her life. So I'm the author of that little short story series. Volume 1 was just released. Volume 2 is coming this year. And a screenplay to go along with it will be released this year also. So I'm very excited for that. I just want to shout out Carlos Anthony, who's a great mentor in that space of writing for me for film and TV. And then, of course, I'm a host. I am the host of Cocktails with LA and the Cocktail Hour. And these are conversations that I get to have about essentially what people thirst for in life and in business. And I love how those two things get to come together and speak to really interesting people. So thank you for having me, Dr. Vibe. And I look forward to the conversation. I'm sorry I monopolized that a little bit.
No problem. It's all good. It's all good. And don't think I'm only going to be the only Black man here. You know, I've got the man in the bullpen, the man that everyone loves. He's coming right here right now. Cesar Ndema-Moussa. What is up, Cesar?
Hello, Dr. Vibe. Hi, sisters. Pleasure to meet you and pleasure to be on this show with you to review the year and to forecast next year. I'm Cesar Ndema-Moussa, Regional Director of Equity, Diversity and Inclusivity of Eastern Ontario in Child Welfare, and as well President of Roots and Culture Canada. I was lately published in the academic book, The Myth of Child Welfare, in which I address basically, the realities of Black children worldwide in terms of their well-being and welfare, and propose Pan-Africanism as a solution. And I just, there's a book, Trailblazers, about African Canadian history, that came out, and the French version, Visionnaire, to which I assisted in the translation of it. So thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. This is a superstar conversation. I'm just going to steer the ship because I know you all going to drive the ship. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's just start. Does anyone have any thoughts about 2022 from a Black Canadian lens? I don't want to start, but does anyone want to start off the conversation?
Coming from the western part of Canada, I'll say the best thing that has happened in 2022 is that we are starting to connect the West and the East. We're actually starting to talk to each other. We are starting to engage with each other. We are starting, in my opinion, to come together as a Black community as one, because so far we've kind of existed in our little provinces, in our little silos, in our little, the different work that we are doing. But all of us striving to do great things for our community, but kind of in silos. I feel like 2022 has started to open doors where we actually are coming together. We're getting to know each other. We're getting to introduce each other to other people, going, do you know this person? They're doing this work here. Do you know this person? Let's come together and just have conversations. And 2023 is bringing that to fruition. Just this panel here, this conversation today is already doing that work of connecting. It's so nice to hear that someone is doing something with child welfare. I didn't know that. That's great. I'm so interested in the play, and I'm like, is it gonna come out west? And it feels to me as though we are starting to come together as a community, supporting each other and working together.
Good start. Who wants to pick up on that? Okay, I will ask, does everyone feel that we're beginning to communicate more as Black Canadians with each other?
Yes, well, I think so.
Okay.
I think so also. I think while we're connecting also in silos. But and what I mean by that is that the space that you occupy, you're able to network and find other people in the space that you occupy in different parts of the world, including across our country. And so while that is good, it's just I would like to see I guess a horizontal connection as well as a vertical connection amongst everybody talking with one another, so that we continue to, I think I heard you say last week, to work together, to collaborate in order to move higher. And so I think that would be a really great way to do it, is to talk to people in different industries that have nothing to do necessarily with yours, but then see how there can be collaboration.
Rosmeary, I'm going to come to you on this because you probably have more, and I say this respectfully, valued experience in regards to Canadians connecting with each other, because you've led initiatives where you've asked for Black Canadians to come together. Did you have a better sense of that happening last year?
I think, I want to believe what you're saying, but there's a part of me that feels that that's not quite where we're at. I think that social media has given us a sense that we really are working together, but I think that there's still a lot of challenges to that happening. And it's certainly not new. There were, decades ago, the creation of the attempt at a creation of a national Black organization was just unable to take hold, partly because of our geography. And so we may see in the coming years, days, whatever, a national Black organization that's working on our common interests. But I'm also seeing things that I think are particularly regional, which are positive and negative. For example, a significant move in terms of African Nova Scotians demanding and seeing themselves as being a unique population, which of course they are. But in the process of doing that, I think it complicates what is a Black Canadian, and it puts on this geographic lens to a people that have moved across the country. There can be people who don't happen to be, but there are people who could have Nova Scotian roots who do not reside in Nova Scotia. So the political benefit may go to that province, but does the impact then flare out for the rest of the country, and not just for Nova Scotians, but for all people of African origin? So it's not like a problem, but it just, I'm teasing out how I look at it. Are we connected nationally? And I also think, just one other piece to that, we had a firm focus on a common issue following the murder of George Floyd. And I think that common focus that was widely agreed upon and accepted, but not fully, helped to make us feel like we may all have been working together. And I don't know, history will tell us later, but it felt really powerful especially in the year immediately following. But I also read social media, and people are questioning what's happening. You said you would do, you promised to commit, you offered to make these changes, and where are the changes? We see the Toronto Police Service, the Toronto, we love everybody, right? And I approach this in a non-political way, a non-partisan way. Not, it's always political, but it's not a political party. We have money being given to the police services, or a plan to give more money to police services, but is the fundamental problem that the police services are being directed to address, being challenged and addressed. So it's yes and no.
Okay. And thanks for mentioning that, because if people are following me on YouTube especially and Facebook, tomorrow morning we're going to actually be talking about that on the Morning Vibe. Myself and Ryan Knight, we're going to be talking about especially how John Tory in his upcoming budget has a whole pile of money put aside for policing, but not a lot of money put in for community programming. So that seems to be an ongoing challenge. So we're going to be discussing that. Promo alert tomorrow morning. If you're watching, that'll be January 9th, live at 9 a.m. Cesar, these ladies have laid down some good knowledge. What would you like to add?
Well, they very well did, because first of all, if I go with the perspective that was given from Vancouver, the reality is that we still live in a country, Canada, where you often hear the talks about high cell phone coverage because the country is so vast. But when it comes to human conversations, for far too many Canadians, Blackness is from Montreal to Ottawa to Toronto and Windsor. So too often they need a reminder that there are Afro-Canadians in Nova Scotia and the East. And at the last moment, they come to remember that Vancouver is not just Asians, or that there are Black people in the prairies and they've been there for more than just the last 20, 30 years, etc. At the same time, and I really like how Rosmeary did talk about, that, sense of connection that unfortunately came with the death of brother George Floyd. But we must never forget that George Floyd is a tree that has an entire forest of so many Black men, but as well Black women, Black children, Black seniors, Black disabled, Black LGBTQ, Black immigrants, Black who don't speak the Queen's English nor the French of Molière. They're just Black. And as such, what we really see, notably in 2022, is the reality of the wrongly and falsely called Freedom Convoy, which was never really about freedom. Because when us Black people, we speak about freedom, when we stand up and we fight and we walk for freedom, that's because there are people who have been dead before, there are people who are dying right now, and so many of our leaders, men and women, will die after for daring to stand up and speak up. So what we saw in Ottawa, where I reside, was 3 weeks of behavior by a crowd for which we have zero doubt, just as in the US with January 6, 2021, we know full well the treatment that would have occurred if they were Black or Indigenous in majority. At the same time, we have to always stay, some people try to use that term as an insult, but as Black people, the reality is this: we have to stay woke. We have to remain awakened to the fact that George Floyd, that was 2.5 years ago, and you give the example of Mayor John Tory in Toronto. Close to us here in Ottawa, Pembroke City, under claims of budget, has canceled the EDI committee. So you see, it's always a pendulum where you end up having that moment of so-called righteousness, where basically institutions, but as well people want to be on the good side of history. Given a little bit of time, they just go back to the good old ways. So as Black people, we do not have the privilege of being relaxed, because at the end of the day, all that we are really doing, all that we're standing for, 2022 as 2023 and beyond that, is always for our ancestors who died for us and for our children who will survive us. So,
All right. Anyone want to add to anything that's been said so far?
I like what you said, and I certainly I think that, you know, if we don't deal with the roots of the problems just continue, and I mean that's just the reality, and it's more time consuming and challenging sometimes to deal with the roots of the problems. But if we don't do it, they will just continue. Maybe they'll be silenced or covered up or erased momentarily, but at the end of the day, you have to come back to them.
Actually, I would like to ask a question about what people's thoughts are regarding the mayoral race that we had, where there was a policy analyst, a Black woman, I can't remember her name, who was very informed and a really great speaker when it came to representing, you know, diversity and inclusion in a real way, not just through representation. At least I felt so when I hear her speak. But I would say that her appearance may have been something that maybe a stylist could have taken care of, so that for our unfortunately, a lot of us melanated people look at things visually in a particular way, and we don't associate. And so when we have these conversations, I feel like we're not having a conversation about just Black issues. I think there's a class issue.
Rosmeary has her hand up emphatically. You've turned on to something with Rosmeary.
I was just wondering, like, there might be people who are watching this right now and they aren't going to be clear on what you're referring to. So I just wanted you to maybe expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the mayoral race, or the John Tory and some of his practices. That's what we were talking about. And I'm saying that I would like to raise this topic of the quest for the mayor, which we just had in 2022 here in Toronto. So I'm sorry to the British Columbia guests, but I just found it interesting in terms of impression management and the identity politics around being able to make real change. And this comes off of Rosmeary talking about it being a mindset. And I think that that's kind of what I would like to see us tease apart more, is our mindset towards voting, our mindsets towards the visual, these nuances that have us perpetuating the same type of behavior within our communities, whether bad, negative or positive. It just, that too also seems to be in a silo in a sense. Just wondering people's opinion about that.
Well, I think you're talking about Miss Paul.
Yes.
And Miss Paul, I may not have heard all of the comments that you've heard, but I think that her situation was significantly challenging within her own party. Never mind.
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about her, but that is another issue.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think about who exactly the candidate is, because that was many things. It was religion. It was everything.
Yeah, so it was the Toronto mayoral race, and not everybody gets invited to the debates, right? So I know that she was always at these debates, and so all I'm trying to say is that I did a conversation with Selena Cesar Chauvin about our voting, the way that we vote here as Black Canadians. And we might get political at the time of the poll, but what's happening is in between the 4 years, we're not engaged. And so therefore we can't stand up and insert ourselves and our voices when things happen, because it's too late by the time we're trying to put somebody in place. So what we want to do is work to put someone in place. And I bring up that I'm sorry I don't remember her name, but I bring her up to say, what could we have done to been more behind this person to be able to put her in that place? I know it's the big mighty John Tory, but she was at these debates and she was going toe to toe with them, and she was speaking a lot of sense. And I just wish that we were more engaged around, you know, what happens in between, so that when she shows up and starts saying what she's saying, we understand what it means and why it would be significant to back her. I just wonder how you feel about Black voting in Canada.
Okay, that's what I was going to say, to make it a more general consensus, because again, some people may not know exactly what you're
Yeah,
talking
I'm
about.
sorry. I have a learning
But-
disability and I can ramble on, so please
Yes.
just bear with me. And
No
I'm not
pro-
kidding. Like it's real.
No, it
We
is.
all
It's,
do.
so no, I'm gonna put it in a way of, I think, what did blacks in Canada increase their engagement with the system
And
last
what's
year?
holding us back?
Yeah,
Always so.
I think speaking from BC, I was able to watch the Chloe Brown story going on, and I'll say we as Black people, unfortunately, don't actually engage. If you look at the numbers of going to vote, we vote in very few numbers. We don't actually. We may talk politics within our community, but it's mostly to complain about what you're not getting. But no one is actually doing grassroots work to say, here's a candidate we're all gonna go behind, and we need to get everyone out to vote.
Right.
And yeah, and without that, I knew Chloe Brown was not going to go anywhere, because most people who are not melanated were going to vote for the other candidates available, mostly. But our community, including anyone who was POC, our numbers are usually very low countrywide in terms of voting. And if we don't go out to vote, there's no way we can actually progress in any way in having people that look like us in our politics. In BC, in Vancouver, we've had Dr. Fry, a Black woman, for 28 years. We show up and vote for her every time, and she's as Black as they come. She used to be loud and boisterous, and if you look at her, she doesn't, I don't think she even goes to a stylist. She's never gone to one. Like, she doesn't look the way you would want them to look to see if they can be voted in. But it just takes people of color being engaged and actually going to vote, not just talking about it, not just complaining about the system, not just complaining about the cops. We have to show up and vote. And I don't think that happens. We have very few Black people, or actually just POC, who are not Asian, in politics right now, just because POC engagement is very slow, and that's universal to all of us, to everyone.
I think there's the other side of that too. It's very expensive to run a political campaign, and it makes it very challenging for people to either get the support, get the nomination, depending on what level of government they're considering running in, and make sure that their name is out there so that people even know that they're a candidate in a particular area. Save for municipal politics, but it's still, you still have to get the nod. So it's complicated on both ends, having the candidates and also having the community that will support them. And I think I hear you. I think, though, we're not the only community that fails to have everybody show up to vote. White people also don't have 100% of white people showing up to vote, but we have to, because we have special interests and we want to see those changes happen, we really have to see what we can do to encourage all of us to get out to vote, so that the percentage of Black voters, the percentage of racialized voters is high, so that we will put through candidates who speak to the issues that we have and who've lived the issues that we've experienced.
Cesar, do you want to add anything? I'm gonna move on to another conversation topic. Do you want to add anything to this one?
What I would add absolutely is that so on one side, it's true that it's not exclusive to the Black community, the lack of voting mobilization per se. We see this notably in the white community, something that notably helped a certain Doug Ford get reelected, whether or not you agree with his policies. However, 5% of the white community does not compare to 5% of the Black community. And at the same time, when you look at some other communities, and whether you look at Ontario or you look at British Columbia and others, 5% of Ukrainian, Chinese, Indian, or Jewish community being mobilized carries far more weight than 5% of the Black community. So there are different levels of power dynamics at play. At the same time, in terms of the general Black population, and I have to say it again, this is where I notably speak of the three cancers of the Black psyche. in terms of toxic entertainment, consumerism, and religion, aka white religions, where one never has trouble seeing blacks being represented in those fields. Whenever there's in order to sell a product, there's always a black person in the entertainment field, just as the system knows blacks are great consumers, but not known for being producers. And as such, we are overrepresented. We are basically upholding the same religions that enslaved and colonized us. But when it comes to the concrete power politics, not only in terms of elections and having a representative, I'm talking about the simple, and I know this is controversial in the black community, we still have an issue of black parents being present at parent-teachers meetings and not just at cultural events where there is free food and dancing. We must have this conversation within our communities before even thinking that we will be taken seriously when it comes to politics and elections, because we only taken seriously there for what? And this is greatly our black women being taken advantage of. Being taken advantage of what? For voting. Black women in Georgia saved a certain Joe Biden in order for him to become president. Did they truly get the return back? Here in Canada, the Liberal Party needs the black vote. Are we seeing a black senior minister, such as in terms of finances, foreign affairs, etc.? These are the real questions we must have, but we cannot truly have these questions if we don't address the dynamics in terms of representation, involvement of our parents, of our children, of our youth, outside of the three cancers of entertainment, consumerism, and religion.
Anyone add on before we
I was just going to say there's one other piece to the political part. All decisions aren't made by people who are in elected office. They have staff. Those staff run things. That's why there's continuity, even when people are not actively involved or there's an election going on. Things continue because there are staff in those offices. Where are the black staff? Things continue on agencies, boards, and commissions. Where are the black people who are in leadership positions or in significant numbers in those areas? Where are the black people who are senators? Where are the black people who are justices of the peace? I mean, we have not seen the representation all around, because power isn't something that just comes from the prime minister. It comes from a whole lot of staff who are all over the country. And having given some DEI work, done some DEI work for the federal government, it's quite amazing to me. Well, I don't want to betray too many things here, but it's amazing to me that, we're still working on certain things, because you cannot assume that the people who are making decisions, the people who are carrying out the policies that have been affected, they are also the people that need to have really have an ability to understand and incorporate a diverse lens.
If I can quickly add very quickly to what Sister Rosmeary just said, because I do agree. Let us just never forget something very important here. The institutions always oversee the individuals, and as such, it is not enough for us to have black bodies in there. We need to ensure we have black bodies with black minds, because you can have a non-black person who, having been educated, becoming aware, and being willing to be an ally, they can bring a lot of change as well. Canada is not some type of nation where everything is in terms of black or white. There's a lot of gray and nuances. However, the change that we want to see happen must first come from us, and as such, for us to stand strong. This is what we see when, for example, we celebrate, the promotion of a black judge such as Justice Tulloch. Great. This is what we see when we have black public servants starting a class lawsuit. But to what extent are they supported by their own black community? These are the real question. Because we know when it comes to, and I mean, I don't mean to go on about entertainment, but we know when it comes to like Drake or some sports team and all that, the numbers are there. But what are the numbers of our people for this type of issues that are pivotal in the realities of our children, of our parents, of our seniors?
Does this not beg the question about access? Because I mean, I think that the accessibility that's available within the entertainment and sporting realm is available, whereas on the other side of what you're talking about, um, we need to do better, I guess, in terms of helping to have pipelines towards that. Because if we just don't have the population size as it is, and they open up this wide gate for us to go through the entertainment industry and then make it like a needle to go through any other industry that will change things in about our community, we have to look at that as well. And not in the danger in not doing that is a lot of us will take on this like a personal struggle that if I just could be better, if I could just overcome and stay motivated, and we start to beat ourselves up, and then the depression sets in because we're not moving forward in the way that we're wanting to will ourselves to do, but the frustration that those barriers are very real is what's preventing us from also moving forward.
You're absolutely correct, sister. And I'm going to tell you, there is such a thing as social conditioning in terms of power dynamics. This is the reason why you see Chinese and Indians being so many in STEM fields, becoming engineers and all that, and having a much easier path of entrance to Canada, the US, and other Western countries. Historically speaking, those are not the nature of the countries, but because of political programs and interests of the Western nations,
Yes.
this is what creates that suddenly this type of fields become interesting. If it wasn't of the Cold War, Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon would not in 1972 have opened the doors to China, and suddenly you see an influx of Chinese students coming to American universities to become engineers and other STEM. Imagine if that was done with Africa. Oh, no need to go to Africa and the Caribbean. We have Black people right here. It's not something that's being valued for our community. This is why by default, using very stereotypical names here, this is why by default we have little Tyrone and little Shanika becoming wired to be more interested in becoming entertainers than to enter STEM fields or even social sciences to uplift the community. It's a conditioning and wiring. Yeah.
It's a conditioning, but it's also sorry, I just went to the idea of hiring too. So I mean, people may well have the skills, the experience, have you, and when they go to try to get in, they're repeatedly denied. And it isn't about the name on the resume. It's when they see that you are not what they expected when they open the door. It's like the rental unit is suddenly not available. The position, you're suddenly not suitable for whatever reason.
Right. And that's so key and so important to the work I'm doing, because we have to create those spaces ourselves now. We know that the reality is, if you look like me, I can't go to the bank and get $250,000, even though I should get it. Someone who doesn't look like me will go and get it. But we now, within ourselves in the Black community, we have to build the spaces and make the tables bigger ourselves. And the other thing is we have to build confidence within us. A lot of us, a huge issue is a confidence issue. People who are immigrants who came when we came here, or if you came with your parents, you'll see your parents work 2-3 jobs, try to get you to school, and that's all we had as examples. And the people we saw in the media were the entertainers. And then social media came and we are like, wait, I can be an influencer and I can get paid, I can make money easier. And now the pipeline has gone that way. We saw parents struggling, and then here's an easier way we can make money. But the two things don't change our situation or improve our generational wealth as a community. So we have to build the tables. We have to push people off of the table and add the table or extend it. And then we have to build the confidence within ourselves. There's a huge issue of lack of confidence to actually go from A to B and then be able to start to make an impact. And like right now, we don't have that many Black people in positions of power here. But we can get Black people working for those people in positions of power and start to change those people's minds about the policies that are coming along. So there's different ways we can have people right at the top, and we can have people helping make the difference in the back. But the biggest issue we have is a confidence issue, and also just knowing we've come to a place where we have to build it ourselves. We can't expect it to be built. We're going to have to wrestle it down and build it ourselves and bring the actual change that we are thinking needs to get done.
Okay.
When you say, I just, I agree with you. There's a confidence issue, but I think if we leave it there, it makes it seem like we're responsible for our own lack of quote unquote progress.
No.
And I'm thinking, not you, I'm just thinking about the people who might be out there listening. And I think that it's more complicated than that. And I think also that you can have all kinds of confidence, but when you've received your 200th letter saying that you cannot be hired, that isn't about confidence. That's about,
that kills you.
Another issue.
Yeah, that kills your confidence, right? That also kills your confidence when you keep getting no. And especially when your no's become very clear that it's because of your melanin, that you're getting the no. That if you might have gone in with confidence, and then it starts to kill your confidence by the time you get there. So I agree. It's both systematic and it's also from ourselves having the confidence, but it can kill you. So it's figuring out how can we mitigate those issues. And right now, a lot of organizations out here in the West, at least, they're coming to us and saying, hey, we are putting jobs out and Black people are not applying. How can we get Black people applying for these jobs? And my question to them is, how does your hiring actually work? What is your process of actually hiring? Who's making those decisions? And if I present candidates to you, what is the process of hiring internally? And also the other thing is, what is the situation of the Black person once they get into your organization? We also talk to each other. If I worked at BCLC and the situation was so toxic for me as a Black person, I'm not going to tell anyone else to go work there just because of how difficult it was to exist in that space as a Black person. So what is the culture also internally for a Black person to be able to not only survive in there, but thrive and progress within the ladder? So it definitely goes both ways, and it's much more nuanced than just confidence by itself.
Okay, I just want to jump in because time is running down fast, and I wanted to get each one of your thoughts, if any. How has, if at all, what is the state of diversity and inclusion and equity over the last year? Because I know, Cesar, you work in that space. Rosmeary, you work in that space. I know LA, you're in that space. And also from a business sense, Jackee, you're in that sense. Where are we standing at the beginning of 2023 when it comes to a diversity, inclusion, and equity?
I don't know.
Wow.
And I say that because I'm just, still reflecting on something that I read earlier today, actually. And a Black woman claims that in her analysis, the people who hold the position of diversity, equity, and inclusion directors or managers somehow tend to be white. And how problematic that is, even if people are an ally, because I think that there is something important about lived experience. There is something important about having an immediate understanding of a situation. And there is something important about also, by chance, having the training to be able to do this work. And so I found that kind of startling. I hadn't really thought about the numbers, but and I don't have them at hand. But this was an American example. And you would think that there would be a significant number of Black people involved in diversity management. And according to what was in this particular article, that isn't the case. So that made me really question, well, where are things going? And we also have the relatively high profile example of a Black woman who recently left of what would seem to be a very good position because she felt that the workplace was unwilling to change, essentially.
I would agree with that as being true. I find that a lot of DEI conversations right now are just conversations, but not actions in most of the organizations. And you're very, very right. I've been involved in a few of them, and majority of the people that hold the positions are white. I have a friend who's taking a course to become a Black counselor and a therapist. And she was taking a DEI course, and her professor was white. And she was the only Black student out of all the other white students. And that was really challenging for her. And so a lot of allies who are in those positions will still center themselves as opposed to the people that this issue is trying to solve. And I've also found organizations, because DEI has been lumped together
With HR.
women is diversity, LGBTQ is diversity, right? And so a lot of the DEI conversations, it's one big part. And so you find that an organization will have women and LGBTQ, but everyone is white, and they'll refer to themselves as diverse. And I have seen that myself, where we have diversity of thought, we have women, and we have LGBTQ, and you're looking at every single person is white, and you're the only Black person talking about diversity here. And they don't actually think about it themselves to go, yeah, actually, that's you've missed the point, or some of the point. But my experience for sure has been, whenever I'm having the DEI conversations, a lot of the people are white involved in there, and they're coming from a good place. They want to make a difference, but very few correct. And the rest of them that are there that are Black, for example, or POC, it's usually one or two people, and they're the ones now doing the education of everyone else, because now everyone else, there's a guilt component. It's quite complicated, but we do still have quite a ways to go.
Cesar has put in our private chat here that I guess he's referring to a survey that 65% of diversity managers are white.
Probably higher.
And if I can add to that, because just as in the previous conversation, the nature of the system will break down Black bodies and minds. It's basically death by 1,000 cuts that can be as small as you don't fit into outright open discrimination, right? But ourselves, standing up, we have to have a certain evolution of language. For example, me, in terms of EDI, I tell people don't use the term people of color. There's no such a thing, because Blacks are actually victim of racism in the group of people of color. You look at it in terms of any part of the world, the MENA region, Middle East, Northern Africa. You look at it in the Indian subcontinent. You look at it in Eastern Asia. But when it comes down to this, in terms of this diversity work, what you end up having is a lot of facade. The type of facade, my wife showed me a great documentary yesterday, Decolonizing Karen, in terms of the race to dinner talks of Regina Jackson. And what you end up having is good, willing white people who, through the facade, the mask of, I'm not going to say mask of allyship, but of good intentions, end up still serving the purposes of white supremacy. And as such, Blacks end up still becoming either used in terms of education or kind of the moral check mark, aka we're not racist, we have a Black person at the table, but does this person has power? This is why, on top of no longer using people of color as language, we should not be talking about inclusion. Inclusion is having a person of the so-called diversity in the room. Inclusivity is addressing whether that person in the room has power, whether that person can speak the truth without being harmed, and especially whether that person of diversity, even if it's one single Black person in a room of 10 or 100 whites, can that Black person become the manager, the CEO, the president, the board member, the etc., etc. These are essential, because when you were asking the question, Dr. Vibe, in terms of 2023 and the state of equity, diversity, and inclusivity, I'm going to tell you this. Jordan Peterson is coming to deliver a speech or conference at the end of January in Ottawa. The resistance is alive. There are talks about a so-called second freedom convoy. Just today, as I was driving to the hotel, I learned that in Brazil, pro-Bolsonaro, aka pro-white supremacist supporters broke into the government in creating a tropical or Brazilian January 6th because they disagree so much with the socialist president-elect Lula, who has created the most diverse ministry in his re-election. We have to stay alert. We have to stay awakened to these realities, and as such, it's not just about us coming together, but it's also about us insisting on our representation. But because everything we're talking about is connected, even when we talk about voting, it's not just about going to vote, it's not just about going in number, it's about doing it strategically, just as in our workplaces and in our social lives and circles, to strategically address these issues so that basically you cannot claim to respect, to like, or to love me if you don't acknowledge my blackness and all the intersectional layers of my blackness.
I think that's actually the thing. What is it that we're looking at? I mean, I agree with you. I think people of color it's like saying multiculturalism in a way, but I think there are moments when people of color is the right word, racialized person or people of color. But is that the issue that you want to address? And I think, for me personally, the top of the list would be anti-Black racism, because that is what impacts me and you. And often those measures that have come about to address anti-Black racism end up making things better for everybody because of the corrections that are made to social policy and the funding that goes into that social policy. So it isn't that people of color is a bad term. There are times when we do have to talk about all the white people or all the people who are not white, but what is the issue that you wish to address? And what is the issue that is most dominant in your area, or the issue that speaks to your heart and your soul? What is the issue? And sometimes I think we have to really just name it. And that issue, I believe, is anti-Black racism. I think for me, when I go into a DEI situation, I can speak with authenticity about my Blackness. I can only speak in a tangential way and an allyship way, and also, of course, about being a woman. But there are other diverse issues that I can't speak to from my own experience. I can only be an ally or be kind or be understanding or be open. And so, yeah, I think anti-Black racism continues to be an issue that we need to address.
Okay, L.A. Wade, do you have anything you want to add?
I would just say that a lot of people that are able to occupy places of diversity and the representation of melanated people also tend to be higher in the socioeconomic status. And sometimes that is a blinder to being able to help those who don't have the same socioeconomic status, or I feel like there are sometimes nuances that need to be teased out a little bit more for us to truly talk about diversity and inclusion, because we're able to label all of the different areas that need to be included. But I feel like class is something that is nuanced within the way that we see and the way that we interact with each other, and the expectations we have on other people that look like us, based on our own perspective. And I think it would be really great to have some commentary around those nuances, because I think that's where the trust issue, the lack of the confidence, I think there might be something in there. It may not feel safe for some people to feel like they are included in an inclusion conversation.
All right. Well, we're coming near the top of the hour, so we're going to have to start winding down, because I know all of you got stuff to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask closing comments in this regards, in the fact that what would you like to see change from your Black Canadian lens as we enter into 2023? We're a few weeks in. Are there any things that you'd like to see? What would you like to see change for Black Canadians, or even little initiatives? I'm going to start with Rosmeary first.
Everything.
Okay. Okay.
It's all, and I'm not saying that to be, yeah, we can laugh, but the reality is that there's so much that needs to be done in every regard, that we have to keep that in mind too. It isn't like, well, if we just address child welfare, then we're good. If we just address the educational system, then we're good. If we just address, like, everything needs to be looked at and considered. And I think that the whole idea of keeping people involved and engaged and mindful is really important. And just a quick example, somebody was talking today about COVID, and everybody's getting sick of COVID, and they feel like, well, I've had my injection, I'm done. I've masked for a while and now I'm fed up. I think that's how white people feel about anti-Black racism. It's like, I've done something, I'm good, it's solved. And I think that we have to sort of keep looking at that and keep reminding people, and remember that everybody hears and feels and understands things in a different way. So if you come on, full force, they might push back. If you come on a little bit quiet, maybe they'll hear you. If you find a middle ground, like, you have to find a way that you can be heard, because otherwise anything you do isn't as effective. You have to make change.
Wonderful. And Rosemary's contact information, if you're watching this live or on replay, is on the screen. Rosmeary.Sadlier. And it's Sadlier, by the way, @gmail.com. So Rosmeary, thank you so much. Next up, we're going to go to Jackee.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for today. I think this was an interesting conversation, and glad to have been part of it. For me, coming specifically from the side of how am I helping us in the community build wealth, is my focus this year is to get as many Black organizations, many Black entrepreneurs as possible supplying to the government and corporations. I basically want to bring new larger customers to our Black entrepreneurs that already exist, or the new ones that are coming up, just to expand our base of how much more money we can make, with the government being the largest buyer in the country, and a lot of large corporations wanting to engage with Black suppliers. My entire focus this year is to get 20, 50, 100 entrepreneurs in that space, so that we can start to make a difference in our community by creating more wealth.
Wonderful. And there is, again, if you're watching live on replay, email address Jackee, that's JACKEE Kasandy, KASANDY @BEBCSociety.org. Next up, L.A. Wade.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think I would just simply state that I would like to see more compassion amongst one another, and then impacting transformative leadership. I think it's really important to be able to see leaders with empathy, and maybe not being able to change anything specifically, but at least sometimes people just want to feel heard. And I think that goes a long way.
Short and sweet, to the point. You can find her. This is L.A. Wade @gmail.com. On all platforms. She's on so many different platforms, and all with a good purpose. Thank you so much, L.A. Wade. And we'll have Cesar close it out.
Thank you, Dr. Vibe. And you already know and already addressed it. As we begin this year and close to the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King, Black History Month, Black history, Black consciousness is not that specific day. It's not that specific month. It's the whole year. Because when I talk about the 3 cancers of the Black psyche, it's not against entertainment. It's against toxic entertainment. that devalues us. When I talk about consumerism, of course, we have to consume. Also, we live in a capitalist society, but wouldn't it be better if we supported our Black businesses, but also our brothers and sisters more? This is what creates a community and uplift us in terms of the dollar value. And when I address religion, we cannot be that community that talks about slavery, colonization, racism hurting us so bad, but here we are praying to the gods and being part of the religions of our oppressors, because our Black community deals with too many traumas, religious trauma, self-confidence, self-esteem, etc., etc., in a reality where we constantly have to put on a mask, have to code switch, and survive death by 1,000 cuts for a paycheck, for our children, to keep smiling, to be the grandmothers, the fathers, the mothers, the aunties and uncles in a community that too often is seen through stereotypes. So our Black people, it's a new year. Let us stay strong. Let us be together. And yes, there are allies, but ultimately, for us, by us.
Thank you so much. You can get a hold of Cesar at president at rootsandculturecanada.com and Facebook, Cesar, Remy, Emery, Ansi -Moussa. I ain't going to spell it out. You got to watch the replay if you didn't get it the first time. All right, family. So I'm going to say this. Thank you to each one of you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedules to share with us. And I hope you can come back again if you have the time. Cesar's on a regular basis. Ladies, you're more than welcome to come on bi-weekly and join our roundtables if you have the time. Would love to have you back, and I know our audience would like to have you back. I'd like to wish each one of you and your family and loved ones and the people that you serve a blessed and a positively flourishing 2023.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to add, just Jackee had some additional ways you can get a hold of her. There's the organization, BEBCSociety.org, and her personal website, Kasandy.com. So we got it all in, folks. And I'd like to say thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you soon. Be well.
Pleasure to have met you all.
Same.
Take care, everyone. Take care. Have a great one. Be well. Keep the faith. And there we go. So there we go, family. Another epic conversation. I'd like to say some quick comments. Welcome again to Dr. Tatch, who hosts the livest conversation about media, tech, and pop culture. You can catch your 5 p.m. Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesdays on Instagram. And it's called Mediascope, by the way. And also 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesdays. You can catch her on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and a whole bunch of other things. She's even on a gospel station down in the U.S. So you can catch her there. Also, long time no hear, Sylvia Paris. So good to see you. Hope you are doing fine and keeping safe, especially with our Black Canadians on the East. So as always, a few closing thoughts I have here. So let me get to them if I can. Let's get to it quickly. There's so much stuff managing all of the things today. So as always, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe channel on YouTube. For those who may not know, New Year's Eve, I passed 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube page. Big celebration for that. So thank you so much for that. If you're following me wherever you are tomorrow morning, not tomorrow morning, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing some webinar on how to launch your podcast. I've been hired or asked by Innovation Guelph, an organization that serves the Guelph, Ontario business community, to do that. So there's the link there. If you want to catch it out, it's free. It is free. This Monday, tomorrow, join us on the Morning Vibe, myself and Ryan Knight from the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We're going to be talking about John Tory wanting to police budget by nearly $50 million in Toronto and its impact on marginalized communities. And also, if you want to promote your business or service on the show, please contact me at dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. And finally, all the different ways you can contact me. Website, email address, so website, the.drvibeshow.com, email dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, Twitter @drvibeshow.com, and Instagram, the drvibeshow.com. And you can also catch replays of this wonderful thing, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, The Dr. Vibe Show, website, The Dr. Vibe Show. That's it. That's all. Said too much. I got to have a great conversation with these wonderful people who took part in this. So as always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless, peace, well, keep the faith, and we'll see you on the road.